Hello, good afternoon. You are welcome to Agenda on TV3. My name is Deborah Kwabla. On Wednesday in the Brown and Ahafo region, the President of the Republic launched a flagship program, Planting for Food and Jobs. We know the agri sector has a number of challenges. Is this program the game changer? To the discussion from far left, we have Mr. Ibrahim Akalbila. He is a coordinator, Ghana Trade and Livelihood Coalition. In the middle, we have Madam Felicia Efia Ozu-Nyantechi. She's the president, CADEP, Non-Sick Actors Coalition. And on my immediate left, we are fortunate to have the Honorable Minister of Food and Agriculture, Dr. Sagri Bambani, Deputy Minister of Food and Agriculture. And he's also the MP for Wale Wale. Welcome, gentlemen and lady, to Agenda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Honorable, we'll start with you. We know the agri sector has a number of challenges. Let me just share with you some figures. In 2008, 7.4 growth. By 2009, we dropped to 7.2. In 2010, we dropped again to 5.3. And then in 2011, we dropped drastically to 0.8%, and marginal increase in 2012. What has accounted for some of these challenges in the agri sector?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your cherished listeners. The agricultural infrastructure in the country, and then maybe I would like to add the third dimension, which has to do with policy.
And the second dimension.
So the structural, the attitudinal, and then policy. So we have a very inappropriate infrastructure for agriculture, even though we have the natural endowments, because a lot of it has to depend on natural factors like the rainfall and the sunshine. So because of this, sometimes when the rains are not favorable, when they are too much or too little, we have this declining trend, because the crops subsector is very, very significant in our agriculture. So that accounts for one of the reasons. Then the other has to do with the kind of policies we embarked over the years. That has made a lot of farmers very, very vulnerable. So because of the vulnerability of farmers, if there is any little shock, then they find it very difficult to adjust to these shocks. Then we also have the attitudes. Attitudes because we have not actually looked at agriculture as a venture that can actually give us incomes and that can promote our livelihoods. A lot of people depend on agriculture just for peasantry. So because we have not also seen agriculture as a business, it is making it difficult for us to develop agriculture strategically and then make inroads. So I would say these are some of the issues. So there are a number of issues, so, but the general issues are what I am trying or attempting to summarize. So the factors, the policies over the years have not been favorable to our farmers, especially when we decided to liberalize the sector and make our farmers exposed to all the competition around the whole world. We left our farmers on their own, especially when we started implementing the structural adjustment program and the general liberalization. So that has exposed our farmers to a lot of competition from all corners of the world. And that has also made them more vulnerable to the natural hazards of the weather.
Okay. So, Ma'am, we know that these days a lot of Ghanaians consume rice, and our import bill for rice is estimated at $500 million US. That's huge, and it's just for consumption. Why haven't we as a country refocused attention? We know successive governments have tried to do a number of programs or initiatives to make sure that we plant more rice, but we still import a lot of rice. Why did we get here? Because $500 million US is a lot of cash.
It is. Thank you very much, Deborah. I think that has to do, I would want to take off from where the Honorable Minister left off. I think it also has to do with the mindset of our people. our choice of our preferences for foreign goods. But then I would want to trace it back to even the planting materials, okay? The kind of seed that would go into our rice production. Farmers' willingness to even buy improved seeds to plant, other than their farmer-safe seed. That's always been an issue. Here we are in a country, we have our head hard.
Why so? If the improved seeds are going to give more yield, why would the farmer refuse seeds
They
that
may
are
not
improved?
even be aware of their existence. That's another thing. We have researchers working hard on improved varieties, but then once in a while you get the notion of, hey, this is GMO. No, we have to stick to our traditional seeds, and that we don't want to lose our old germplasms and all of that. But that's neither here nor there. I think the world is progressing far, and to be able to catch up and be in competition, and to even get our own people to appreciate what we do produce, we equally have to patronize what we produce here locally. That's starting from the research angle with the seeds that the researchers churn out. But then what happens? After the researcher had gone into work for so many years, and that these seeds are released, the farmers may not be aware for whatever reasons. But then I would admit that when the research is going on, they involve farmers right from the word go. But then how many of them do still take it off? I mean, once the research is done. We have issues after the research findings is done. The commercial aspect is a problem. The multiplication wing is also in defects. I know they are also handicapped for a lot of reasons. They pick the breeder from the researcher, multiplies, and then churns it out to the final producer to produce. But then all these areas have these challenges that is always making it impossible for the farmers to even assess the quality seeds that have been produced locally. So one is sometimes time constraint, where farmers are just not finding the right variety of seeds to produce, and then the technical aspects that go on after that, the pre-processing equipment and infrastructure are all not there.
We'll get into all the
Just one aspect
Mr.
of it.
Kawila, we have a good palm nut industry. We produce palm oil, palm kernel oil, groundnut oil. We used to produce sugar in Ghana. We used to can tomato in Ghana. Now we spend about $400 million to import tomatoes, cooking oil, and other vegetables. This is a shame, isn't it?
It is. And good evening to your listeners. I would start by looking at maybe 10 years back, since you've made reference to 2008, and look at the policies that we adopted from 2011. We started with the Food and Agriculture Sector Development Plan, a program, to 1 and then to 2. We even developed what we call the medium-term agriculture sector investment plans. We are actually currently implementing the second one. If you look at the vision for the policy, it seeks to modernize agriculture by structurally transforming structurally transform the economy, and that should be evident in food security, poverty reduction, and the generation of employment. But if you look at what we have done through the investment plan over the years, is to focus on two aspects of the 6 program agenda, and that is food security and increased growth in incomes. In fact, over 95% of the investment over the years has been into that. What has happened is that we've actually looked at the end of the whole process by trying to provide seeds, which is good, by trying to ensure that we're able to get mechanization to farmers, fertilizer subsidized, and all that. But the issue is, to modernize agriculture, you need to also modernize the systems. You need to reform. You need a very big reform, to ensure that you're able to supply seeds on a sustainable basis to farmers, and that farmers have access to credit to actually even buy fertilizer. They should be more productive. And we need institutions to be able to enable that. We've not been able to do that because of the focus of investment that we've been doing, in regards to policy. So that has actually put us in this particular quagmire where there's a lot of inconsistencies. In fact, if you look at the development of agriculture since 2008, or even in the past, that's actually been associated with rainfall pattern. Anytime we've had heavy rainfalls in Ghana adequate, we have high productivity. Anytime small-scale farmers do well, especially the crop sector, we have high productivity. If both fail, then
there's a challenge.
There's a challenge.
Well, at the launch on Wednesday in the Borough Harford region, the president made. Let's listen to the president's statement, and then we'll come back and continue the discussion. We'll be back shortly.
Government's vision is to modernize agriculture, improve production efficiency, achieve food security and profitability for our farmers, all aimed at significantly increasing agricultural productivity. We intend to pursue a value addition strategy aimed at rapidly ramping up agro-processing and developing new and stable markets for our products.
President, at the launch for the Planting for Food and Jobs program, Honorable, how much consultation was done before at the policy formulation stage? Because we know there are a number of stakeholders in the industry.
Yes, I would say some high level of consultation has been done. First, we have to acknowledge that the policies that we are rolling out for agriculture, just as other sectors of the economy, are in consonance with the New Patriotic Party's manifesto. So we did a lot of thinking, we did a lot of consultation among some experts before we came up with the manifesto. So the policies that we are rolling out are from our manifesto. Then, when we took over power, some amount of consultation was also done with some stakeholders in agriculture. For instance, the developing partners, and then some non-governmental organizations related to agriculture, and all the technocrats in agriculture before the Planting for Food and Jobs was designed. We are seeing it as a pilot because we have a 9 months budget to operate.
So we are piloting for 9 months?
We are piloting for 9 months because you know we approved an interim budget in Parliament for the first 3 months of the year before, so that it could take care of the transitional period. So the MPP government's new budget is taking effect from April to December. So we are rolling out the Planting for Food and Jobs program on a pilot basis, and then from now up to the end of the year, we'll be able to look at the achievements, the challenges, and then the feedback that we'll get from some of those we were not able to reach out and consult, and the farmers themselves as we implement the program, and then we can upscale it in the subsequent years. So the Planting for Food and Jobs has started on a very small scale because we are restricted to only small, about
five crops, yes.
5 crops.
But yes, that's across
but
the country.
That's across the country. But if we are to upscale it, we will cover more crops. And then we'll even go into some industrial crops. And we'll also go into livestock as well.
Madam, how do you see this program? Some stakeholders, like the GAU and many other stakeholders in the agri sector, have criticized that the consultation was not in-depth, and there are a number of challenges, and it looks like government has put together a program that is going to scratch the surface of the challenges. What's your view?
I think I'm happy to hear the Honorable Minister say it's on a pilot base. That has always been my reservation, because looking at it as it's being rolled out, I even thought it was too big for a pilot.
Because it's nationwide.
It is nationwide. And the number of seats that was required to kickstart the program, to me, was a bit too much. And I was thinking whether the value chain activity was factored in. And that has been my worry. Other than that, it's a laudable program. I don't think there's ever been such an enthusiasm from the part of government to revamp and restructure agriculture as we are seeing this time around. And me, where I sit, and most of the stakeholders and the farmers are very happy. But we are looking at the aftermath. There is a reservation that maybe there will be too much production, and did we consider the processing bit, the drying aspect, the marketing wing, and all of that? Aside of that, I think it's a good program, because the addition of extension was one major issue, but I think that has been tackled. And if indeed the extension officers or the youth that have been trained to go into some kind of extension is actually well carried out, I think it will go a long way to save a lot of the challenges and the fears that we are beginning to entertain. And coming to the consultation aspect, I think some consultation was done, but it was not in depth. But I'm happy also to know and to learn later that in fact there were regional consultations and regional representatives to also steer the program in the various regions, which is good because it's quite huge for the first year. And so even going into the next year, I would rather we probably stick to the crops that we have currently and probably add on to livestock. But to add more crops, I still have mine. Such as I don't know what the honorable minister has in mind, but I think
but you are comfortable with the 5 crops that have been named.
I am, except that maybe
because
cassava,
the vegetable we haven't named the vegetables. Some vegetables, selected vegetables. Yes. We are not sure which ones.
And I think our local vegetables were also not captured. But again and again, all of these vegetable seeds are all imported. Are we considering resourcing our researchers to even go into the production of vegetable seeds? Okay, all of these vegetables are all imported, especially the exotics. As we speak now, I also sit on the seat of the Seed Traders Association as an executive member. And so we are tasked to supply the local Obatampa seed maize. And so we decided that, hey, to be able to resource our members, let's try and get everybody on board, because they do complain they don't have markets when we produce, we don't get this, that. So we led the delegation, put in the bid, and we were awarded the local seed supplies. And then the challenges are even coming up. Even our members, for some reason, don't want to even give us the seed to supply. They say, hey, no, government will not pay. We need this, we need that. So, all these things are the challenges that we are talking about. But I think we are all enthused to see to it that this thing becomes a success. Because I think it's in the interest of the whole nation to ensure that agriculture is given the needed attention that has to be given. Other than that, I don't think the oil is the answer to our problems. And I'm more interested in the job aspect of it, especially with the youth. They don't even want to know agriculture because of the perception of the whole and cutlass, which is yet to be ripped off their minds. But then what do? We have to guide them along the agribusiness opportunities, to let them see the opportunities along the agribusiness lines, for them to feel attracted. And when they see that, hey, we can use IT to help agriculture, we can use packaging to help agriculture, we can use processing to help agriculture, we can even use consultancy, extension and all of that to help grow agriculture, it will get to a time they themselves will want to go into production. And so I am very happy with the extension, which seemed to employ or recruit a lot of the youth, our graduates
to do the pilot.
Exactly. And so those are the areas I would want us to also scale up going forward, and just probably add a few of the staples like yam and cassava to what we already have on the table.
Mr. Kabila, we know we have a number of challenges. Let's look at the input side. She talked about seeds. We are happy to hear that we are using the Obatampa seed. When we go to sorghum, when we go to millet, when we come to rice, and then when we go to the vegetables that we have not named, are we bringing in seeds? Isn't that going to also bring in challenges? How do we deal with the input side? Not only about seeds, but also about equipment and the input side. We know the rains are setting in, but they won't be here forever. Once the weather changes, the program is challenged. How do we deal with that input side?
Yeah, the challenge has been that, as I said earlier, we've not actually been able to resource the institutions that are mandated to be able to do this very well. Madam mentioned the issue of research. R&D is number one where agriculture is concerned. I mean, she also mentioned extension providers. If they don't have the knowledge, what are you going to provide? It's R&D that provides knowledge for us to be able to, transmit to farmers. If you don't have knowledge that is absorbable by the category of farmers that we have, especially small scale, then of course it doesn't make any particular kind of use to them. It doesn't become of any use to them. But the issue too is that where inputs also are concerned, I specifically think that one of the critical aspects is plow mechanization. Over the years since 2008, we've attempted to provide AMSECs, to as many farmers as possible. We've not succeeded to go beyond a plow service to planting. If we are going to target these many farmers, how are we going to appropriately plant those seeds in rows in such a way that they'll be more productive? Most of our farmers still broadcast rice, which is not productive. The issue of access to credit is one of the biggest challenges that we have in Ghana currently. It's good that we have, I think the Bank of Ghana came out with what we call the GISA, Ghana incentive-based risk assessment kind of lending, agricultural lending, which to a large extent may help with the situation, but they are targeting export crops and import substitution crops. Which import substitution crops are we talking about? Is possibly rice will be part of it. So credit, we need to actually work at that.
But we have an import bill of 500 million. So if we are substituting and we bring it down to 200,
exactly,
we would have saved about 300 million.
Exactly.
Isn't that positive?
That's very, very positive. And I want to add to the fact that, the reason why we are not able to create jobs out of agriculture over the years is because of, though this is planting for jobs, we always get the food, which sometimes is very inconsistent. It goes up and down. But creating jobs out of agriculture is very, very important. We've actually been leaving out some institutions. I would say, for example, that if you want to create jobs out of agriculture, especially with the type of farmers that we have, in fact, about 70% of our farmers learned farming from a friend, a family, and all that. It's not through formal means, So the ability to use knowledge is very, very important, and therefore you need extension advice. So for me, really, it is very, very important to be able to have this sort of system that can target them appropriately and ensure that they are very productive in what they do. And I think we've not been able to do that very, very much. So the use of fertilizers, use of even how to apply seeds, plow services, they get it maybe once. It's not done well. You don't get a second plow. A rice farmer will not get a harrow service after the. So that's the beginning of unproductivity.
So there are challenges, huge challenges with the input.
Exactly. So for me, the program Planting for Food, Planting for Jobs, brilliant. At this time of our development, we need that. But we need aspects of it that will actually transform our agriculture system. I've not yet seen it. I don't know.
Honorable, we know there are a number of initiatives that the MPP has proposed.
That is why
one village, one dam in some northern parts of the country is not done yet. The president also announced one factory, one district. In fact, 1,000-ton storage facility per district. We know the factory thing is also in the pipeline. These are all things that are linked, but then the food is going ahead. How do we make sure that when there's a bumper harvest, we have seeds that are coming in for free, we have bumper harvest, we can safeguard those seeds? She mentioned drying, storage, processing. The factories are not ready.
Point of correction, there is no free seed in the program. we are going to have subsidized seed.
And subsidized fertilizers.
And
These are all
subsidized
input
fertilizers,
issues.
yes.
But then when you get to the farm proper.
By 50%, you see. And if you look at even seed cost is quite insignificant in the crop budget of the farmer. So for seed, it's not necessarily a problem of cost to most farmers, but it has to do with the education, as Madam mentioned. You see, we have neglected the education aspect of our agriculture for a very long time. My father was a very devoted farmer, even though not a commercial farmer, but a very devoted farmer, and I have grown on the farm, and I know a lot about farming, and a lot of my experience in agriculture was acquired from the farm and not in school. You see, but my father, I will admit, never had a contact with even an agric extension officer, because the extension officer farmer ratio in Ghana is very, very bad. There are some communities that have not seen extension officers for several years. We have several training institutions for extension officers in this country. For the past 4 years, we have not been able to absorb them. They are unemployed graduates. I am told the number up to about 4,000. Now, what this program is doing is to take on 1,200 of them now. If you go to Kasina Nankana, if you go to Balgatanga, if you go to Talensi in the Upper East Region, if you go to West Mamprusi, East Mamprusi in the Northern Region, if you go to Savulugu Nantong in the Northern Region, and you want to know the number of extension officers as against farmers, even though the Ministry of Agric has a ratio of 1 to 1,500 farmers. So you can just imagine if you are an extension officer and you are to educate 1,500 farmers, and farming has to do with tight schedules. Things have to be done on schedule.
Rain dependent.
Yes, things have to be done on schedule. The activities have to be done on schedule promptly. And you have to go around and educate 1,500 farmers, or you have to gather them and educate them. It's pretty
So let's look at the other links.
So if you look at, I just want to,
harvesting.
yes. So if you want to educate them, even before they begin to do their land preparation, before even the planting, Mr. Kabila mentioned the issue of land preparation, where some farmers have only the plowing and they don't harrow, you see, for rice. If they were to know the value of harrowing and the increase in yield as a result of harrowing, then they will strive, especially those who can afford, they will strive to ensure that they get harrow services. Look, it is even saddening to note that we knew in the past that it was only rice that was broadcast, but other crops like maize, granules, they were planted in rows. But even now, it will shock you to see farmers broadcasting granules.
Because of the labor.
I have witnessed farmers broadcasting granules, and I have witnessed farmers broadcasting maize.
Is it because they do not know, or is it because it's so labor intensive that broadcasting becomes an easy approach?
It's the education. Because they are not well educated on these things, they decide to do anything.
Okay. Honorable,
so,
please.
and when you was talking about farmers learning from others, they learn bad habits from others as well. Because I never saw my father's broadcast maize or granules, but now my brothers in the village are broadcasting granules.
So there's a lot of waste.
There is a lot of waste and inefficiency. So they misuse our land, and then they get very poor yields. And then it doesn't help our agriculture. Then our soils get exhausted for nothing.
Yeah, welcome back. We are looking at food security issues, and we know we have a program that has been launched, which is Planting for Food and Jobs. And we are looking at the nuances of the program, some of the challenges, and what we need to do to make sure that that program succeeds. Ma'am, we have an issue with insurance, and insurance companies are not interested in going into agric because it's very high risk. How do we deal with the issues of insurance? Because then the farmer loses everything.
Thank you, Deborah. I think agric and insurance, as well as the financial institutions, are at war. I don't know for whatever reason.
But can you blame them? It's a high risk area.
I won't, because they are profit-oriented organizations. So obviously, they would want to see how to de-risk agriculture to make it attractive. And I think it's something we all need to think through. And I've always been looking at how to strengthen the warehouse security system, the warehouse receipt systems, where goods are kept in warehouses and then they are issued receipts, and that can serve as guarantee or some collateral to give the bankers some comfort for onward lending. So that's one aspect. There's also the input credit scheme. I'm trying to let us see how to de-risk agriculture to make it attractive to some of these institutions. The input credit scheme is where input dealers forward inputs to agriculture, and that's something this policy seems to be addressing, and that's what makes it interesting.
And then the storage is also coming in.
It's also coming in.
Will that help?
Yes, it should help, because when there's production harvest time and there are excesses, there is nowhere to store them, there isn't ready market, there isn't any processing, and all of that, and it becomes a disincentive. The farmer doesn't know what to do with it, and so obviously the insurance companies and the bankers will obviously shy away. But that shouldn't be the case. We should try and see how to de-risk agriculture to make it attractive. And so the input credit scheme is a situation where inputs are forwarded to the farmer, and then at the end of production
they can pay
back, and they deduct all of these, and then at least something is guaranteed. The insurance, I think, should also work hand in hand with the financial institutions. But there's still a situation where you can even have an insurance, but still go to a bank and get an agricultural loan, but the insurance aspect wouldn't be considered at all, but you would have been servicing there.
So we need some broad consultations and some discussions on this. Forward to that. Mr. Kabila, the land tenure system is another one. If we want to plant for food, then we need to plant on a larger scale and stop the small substituted farming. How do we deal with that? How does government support farmers to make sure that they can have access to safe land? Even though government is not a custodian of the land.
By 2015, we should have actually passed a land use plan by the Metasep 1, actually. We should have had a land use plan that would have safeguarded portions of land across Ghana that will be secured purposefully for agriculture. We've not succeeded in doing that. We're in 2017. We're hoping. So that is one challenge.
That's one challenge.
But of course, with the category of farmers, we have over 80% of our farmers being smallholder, who a number of them have land titles and some notes entitling them to the land, but majority don't. What it means is that the ability to then invest appropriately on the land becomes a challenge. In fact, the largest investor on farm in Ghana is a smallholder farmer. What we can do then is to see how they can better use their labor, and of course better use whatever small income they have on that particular land. But the fact that the land is not owned by them, it becomes a problem.
But at least if they have notes to use the land, then
it's a very, very small.
What do we do to make sure that majority does? Because then it provides some security. We are talking about input credit. We are talking about insurance. If you don't have title or you don't have a note to the land,
that's where policy.
You're highly volatile.
Exactly. That's where our policy has failed us, really.
Honorable, we'll come to you. Honorable, we'll come to you. Honorable, if you could please hold on.
I'm a bit confused about this submission.
Okay. Please hold it for me. I have.
Honorable, let me. This is a very.
Please make it brief. Make it brief.
National issue.
Yeah.
So I have to seek some more clarification.
Exactly.
Because apart from settler farmers, most farmers within our communities, they have, the fact that they don't have papers doesn't mean that the traditional setup doesn't recognize them as.
Or if they need credit inputs, if they need insurance, they need to produce those papers.
Yeah, I understand you. But you see, we are, for all you know, it is not the absence of these things that is retarding our productivity. I think that these things can spice up the meal, but it doesn't mean that without these things we cannot produce well. And you see, it is also
without input credits.
You see, we might not.
They are buying seeds subsidized, though.
Yes.
I mean, I can cite thousands of examples.
I understand you.
Where farmers who were, were in the middle of production were stopped from doing it either by developers, where government has actually invested huge amounts of money in developing low, what they call it, inland valley rice projects. They are turning them into what they call it, estate development plots. And we know that of Weja here. We know that about Dawenya. I mean, that it is happening. And these are even government-secured lands that are being taken over. Yes. What is happening to the smallholder out there? A lot of them are actually being displaced.
We have Mr. Edward Kariwe on the line. He's the General Secretary for GAO. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
It's good to have you on phone.
Thank you.
Yes, please go ahead. We know you have some concerns and some questions that you want to put across.
Yeah, I just want to
and contributions, yes, please go ahead.
Doing a great job, and all of you there. I'm also concerned about the marketing, because for every production, there must be market first, because it is the market that will induce production. Now, even though the Honorable Minister has indicated that they have made the provision to deal with the market issue by allowing state institutions to take the produce from the farms, you know, it's quite not adequate, in the sense that when you talk about rice production, the schools, the hospitals, the prison service, they do not go to buy raw rice. They go to buy processed rice. And what they are doing now with the food and planting for food and jobs is to produce raw rice. So it is not also the question that the schools in the past, the hospitals in the past, did not want to go and buy the local rice. But they were not well resourced to buy the rice at the time that they want to buy. So that is a big challenge which they need to put measures in place now to address it. Fortunately, there is still time for them to address that marketing issue, because from now until 3 months, until the end of the year, they still have time to deal with that. Again, when you talk about the market, it is not enough for state-induced markets to be able to address the level of production that they are seeking to achieve within the year. So they need to also come up with policies that would say to, constrain the imports, the overflow of imports into the country, to free space. And that free space, in addition to the state-induced space, could then create substantial market space for the local production that they are seeking to have now.
Okay.
That's my contribution.
Your contribution.
They can look at it seriously.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edward Kariwe, for sharing with us on that. Honorable, what do you have to say? Marketing, that's what we're talking about. Marketing, post-harvest issues, processing of the rice, storage, drying. These are critical issues.
Quite right.
Because in few months we have production.
Quite right when he says that the rice, for instance, will be produced in paddy form. Yes. So the off-takers that we are going to get, they have to take it to processors, and then the processors will process. But for maize, if you take it, it's ready for usage. So it's not all the crops that will have that problem.
And we have vegetables.
Yeah, we have vegetables. Vegetables too, we are arranging with these same institutions, and we are also arranging for exports. because vegetables, the export market for vegetables is...
The vegetables were not named. Is it possible to tell us some of those vegetables?
Tomato is one.
Tomato is highly perishable, we know.
Onion is another one. And then pepper.
And cabbage.
And cabbage.
Yes. Yeah, those that we are looking at.
And let's, I know you wanted to make an additional contribution to the land tenure system.
Yes,
that's
the land tenure system, I was trying
program.
to say that if you look at a lot of our localities, people have their traditional land tenure system. And there are a lot of people, we know people have challenges with land acquisition when it comes to production. But there are a lot of people out there who also have access to land. But the problem has to do with the low productivity. I think if we cannot address all the problems at the same time before we take off, so we can be addressing these problems as we go along.
Because are there plans to address the land issue?
Yes.
Would it happen within the pilot?
I can't assure you now, because we have just assumed the reins of
How about the other pieces?
We have just assumed the reins of government.
The factory.
You have told me that, you have told us that we're supposed to have, finished with a policy to secure some demarcated lands for agriculture by 2015 by the, is it FASDEP or? Metasep. By Metasep. So it means that there is a lack in policy implementation. So we have to go and study, the challenges that the previous government encountered. And then we try to see how...
if that is the case, shouldn't we have studied the challenges holistically, address them holistically? Because it looks like the president said he's in a hurry. We know that. And but haven't we launched too early when we haven't dealt with the other major issues?
We are dealing with food, and we are all complaining that the rice imports, the tomato imports, all the imports are overwhelming. We must be doing something now whilst addressing all these challenges. If we want to wait until we address our land tenure challenges, then we will have a problem. If there are 6 childhood diseases still around, won't give birth to children.
Madam, what would be your recommendation? He says communication and formation of cooperatives.
I think then the youth need to be mentored as well. There are a lot of actors along the value chain. Some of us are acting, and we've been acting for a long time. And so we should be able to mentor the youth and pinpoint them to the opportunities along the value chains of agriculture. Aggregation is even one. With what they have acquired in the universities, they can now begin to, appreciate the opportunities. I mean, every other thing that can bring value to, other than just the production bit. The processing aspect, the extension, the good agronomic practices, how to plant what, the fertilizer applications, and all the notions about agrochemicals. These are areas that the youth can be empowered to take up. And then what we call incubation. Incubation is bringing them together and getting their interest in which particular area of the value chain they them together, and giving them startup packs to be able to release them. Some are interested, we want to go into agriculture, so what do we want to do? We want to do production. After production, then what? Some want to go into some pre-processing, like say cleaning of maybe carrots, packaging and supplying to some hotels, and with their level of education and exposure.
So we need to segregate and segment the sector, the various opportunities within the sector, and then mentoring. That's very important. Yes, Honorable.
Yes.
And please add land. What we need to do with land, because if I'm in Accra and I want to go back somewhere, go back home or go into this program and I don't have land, what do I do?
Yes,
so how do we get the interest?
We have to, as a country, address the problem of land acquisition for agriculture, and try to draw the lines between residential land where
Honorable, you are the Deputy Minister for Food and Agric.
Yes.
So in terms of land,
yes,
what is the government going to do, and how quickly will this happen? Because you have a 4-year term.
Yes.
We have a pilot for the first year.
Yes.
3 more years.
Yes.
When should we see action on dealing with land?
That is an inter-ministerial issue, and I will get back to the ministry, and then we'll discuss it further.
But when should we get back to you? When should we get back to you for updates?
I will give you the update later.
We need to have some time so that we can get back to you.
Because my minister has to liaise with other ministries, the Ministry of Lands, and other relevant ministries, the Attorney General's Department and Ministry of Justice. They will all have to be involved in this matter. It is a very complex matter. Even the Chieftaincy Ministry and the National House of Chiefs, they all have to be involved in this matter. That is why it is not very easy to address. It has to be worked on seriously. But to whip up the interest, we have to step up. We have to step up our education, and the immediate one has to do with the communication through television, through radio. Because when we were growing up, the Achampong's Operation Feed Yourself program was well advertised.
And we had a lot of food.
Every primary school that was in a rural area or that could have access to land had a farm. Great. Every secondary school had a farm. Every teacher training college had a farm. Universities had farms. So we all have to have farms. And you, TV3, you must have a farm. So that
we are helping to do the education and the advocacy.
Yes, but you should also have a farm.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister for Food and Agric, Dr. Sagui Bambangi, and then Mr. Ibrahim Akalbila, and Madam Felicia Ifyo-Usunyantechi. Thank you so much for throwing more light on this very important. And thank you, Mr. Edward Carraway, for calling to share, make that contribution. Thank you for being part of this show. My name is Deborah Kwabla. God willing, next week, same time, 3 p.m., we'll bring you another program. But my guests have clearly indicated the next steps: communication, education, mentoring, formation of coalition, but we also have to deal with the land tenure system. That's very important for this program to be successful, and we all need to contribute to it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a productive week.